everybody. Welcome. It's great to be back. Not traveling, sitting next to Shane or Dave Miller or running service calls for Ted and Kyle. So it's good to be in front of the screen back again. We're going to go over water quality. I had a situation recently that kind of opened up my eyes a little bit more with water quality. I've always been one of my pet peeves about water quality and combustion are, we got to educate not just the contractor, but also the consumer to understand that these things need to be looked at every year, and not just look at combustion. We need to look at the water side. So what's in your water that's the question for today, and there's a lot to go over. All around the United States, mostly populated more towards the East Coast. We see more of that population of more lime buildup and calcium buildup on hot water piping systems, domestic hot water heaters. That's why we've always told, and even in my area, flush out the bottom of the hot water heater, get all that hard calcium lime out of the bottom of there because it eats away and deteriorates the bottom of the bottom of the water tank. So there's a lot of things that we've always done over the years, but as we've grown with the technology and the boilers that hold a half a gallon of water, we need to think about things like, what's being passed through that passages of that boiler, and what is it doing to the overall system. I mean, I've already seen sensors pulled away from the burner because they're just trying to pull the heat out of the heat exchanger, and they're not able to do that because it's all that magnetite that's been hardened inside the heat exchanger. So inform your consumers. You as a contractor have to look at it as a whole. Once you touch it, if something happens in the future, like let's say, for instance, you put a TRX in, you didn't flush out the system, and you go back and you're getting an issue where you're not getting enough domestic hot water. I was just out on one the other day. Regan Heating and Cooling, they were out on job. They were back and forth with the homeowner. I had an indirect tank, complaint wasn't heating up. We went through, we were looking at what type of flow we were getting and replaced the circulator, pulled the circulator out. It was seized up, put the new circulator in, boiler fired right up, satisfied the tank right away. Had a couple situations like that already. So that's something we need to look at. We need to also educate the homeowner that they need to keep up on things like that. What goes through our system? There's a lot of things that are passed through our system, especially if we have radiant systems. We're using antifreeze. One key thing about any type when we use antifreeze, every year on a preventive maintenance, and I say preventive maintenance because it prevents you from being out there on a service call in the middle of the night. Very important that we look at these things and we test for antifreeze quantity. See the strength of the antifreeze. There's really nice test kits out there that you can purchase to go in. If you have a radiant application, do a test where you're looking at the quality of the antifreeze. That glycol, it does lose its strength after a while. And keep in mind, don't go with high concentrate of glycol, because with water tube heat exchangers, it will entrain the air. Other things like large magnetite and debris. That's the biggest hurdle we have, and it's one of the problems that we always experience with a high efficiency boiler, because what happens is, once you take it out of solution and heat it up, it now sits down in the bottom of that heat exchanger and will harden as the circulator moves around it, causing it to be like a concrete type condition inside the heat exchanger, which is an issue when it comes to flow. It also can affect other things in the house, like it can affect the cast iron rads you may have in your house. How many of these boilers have you taken out? The old cast iron boilers are great filters because they held all that crap. They didn't have to worry about these big passages. So it's not just the boiler itself, but it's overall the system. Because remember, we don't just sell boilers, we sell systems now. We're adapting different type of technology, air to water, stuff like that, radiant, you're bringing chillers in. So there's a lot of different type of applications, and this is very important. Go back to that water quality on chillers and anything dealing with water, air to water. You got to have good water quality. It's key. The heat transfer is number one. This is a great report, Dave. I give you credit for this. You guys and your team putting this out. This was a phenomenal report. I love this report because it outlines everything, and it goes through everything that the customer needs to know when working with a high efficiency or even an NTI, our boil, not just our boilers, but any high efficiency boilers, not just the NTIs, but just to understand water concepts and water quality. So this was a great report. This is attached in the handouts for tonight, everybody. So feel free to download that, or If you don't want to download it tonight, you can always visit our partner login, which is free to you guys. Just go in, register as a partner login, and you can get yourself set up with a password and a private login. You can go and see all of our documents. And this was one of the greatest ones. It's right on the front of the page too. So it outlines exactly what we've always said in the manual. Depending on which boiler you're working with, like if you're working with our smaller TRX series, your pH is going to be 6.5 to 8.5. But then when we start to jump into the bigger units, like when you get into the fire tube, you're going to see a little different pH levels. But there's not just the only thing we need to look at is pH. We need to look at other things, not just the pH. We need to look at the total chlorides in the system. They could also be a hindrance. I'll show you some pictures in a little further in this training of a job site I went to visit with one of our bigger wholesalers that sell larger jobs. It's in Ted's territory. He sells a lot of larger jobs, more commercial style jobs. And we went through an application, and I'll walk you guys through that, and something to look at, not just not looking at the paperwork and identifying the pH is correct, but looking at other things in the system. Fire tubes, they have a different pH range, a little bit different, a little bit higher. 6.5 it starts at 6.5 on the water tubes, but once you get up into the fire tubes, you're looking at 7 to 7.5 to 9 pH levels. And we do have everything published in the manual. We encourage that you guys, this is for presentation purposes, this presentation we're doing, but I want you guys and gals to all reference to the IOM, the installation instructions. That's where we have identified the standards that we're looking for in our equipment. We look at some other applications like our LX, which is a real big mover, especially in the water heater side, where it's a good production for domestic hot water. You can see there's pH levels 7.5, so just in the same line of the fire tube, so we're around 7 to 9.5 in that range. So you see they range in the same pH level. Once we start to get very low in that pH level, it's very acidic and very corrosive. Larger boilers like the FTG, 6.6 to 8.5 is our range there. You can kind of see that falls in the range of the water tube again. So these are the pH levels we're looking at. And when I show you some test results from a job I went to see, you'll understand what pH has and excessive oxygen will do to a system. And that's the other thing, excessive oxygen. If you guys are getting a lot of oxygen in the system, a lot of makeup water, that's when you may want to talk to the consumer, or if it's a commercial application, maybe the property manager or business owner, and say, hey, listen, we got something going on in the system. We need to kind of cure it. So maybe you want to isolate it by using a plate exchanger, which is your best option unless you want to repipe a lot of stuff. So water quality, we're also going to identify in the manual. We'll tell you what type of cleaners we approve. So we'll tell you, and it's funny because I like Ted and Steve. I've always heard them say this. Oh yeah, we used to go into the jobs and go on a service call. And we look up in the joist space, and there's that bottle of Fernox that we used to give it. NTI has been given, I mean, I don't know how long it's been. Maybe Dave, you could tell us, but Fernox has been given out with every NTI boiler for years, from what I understand. For years. So there we got guys
putting. Started that back in 08 or 09.
And it was still being distributed in the LX boiler.
Well, yeah, it's in the LX but not in the other boilers. I haven't seen the other ones. I've seen it in the LX recently too, when they were packaged with it. I haven't seen the other boilers, but see here, we gave it to them and they never used it. And this was what they need to do. It's like going to a doctor. You need to get checked out. So what other cleaners are out there? There's 80, there's Boiler Mag, there's Fernox, there's Sentinel. I think Odie has one. They all have all these different cleaners. It's just a soap. It's not an acid. It's a soap that breaks down the magnetite inside the system, and it allows it to break up and dislodge from the piping. So it's a really nice setup. I mean, I know we're doing something internally with AD. We had a little thing, but there's some really nice products out there. And I mean, the cool thing is no longer, it's not like you jumped up in a TSP in there. Now you guys can just walk up to a boiler drain. And I always tell, the contractors, I say, your estimator, when he gets a signed contract and he gets that signed proposal saying, listen, I want you to do my boiler, I want you to put that NTI boiler in. That's when the estimator should be trained to go down to the boiler drain, hook this up. It's self-injecting. Hook it up, open up the boiler drain, let it run through the system for 2 weeks. And then when the guys come to install the boiler, all they have to do is just drain it down, run a little fresh water through it, and get all that magnetite out of there, and they'll be good to go. I mean, it's not hard. It's not like they have to rip the boiler apart. I think that this industry needs to understand that there's things that we need to do to extend the life of the equipment. There's even fast acting ones. I seen this recently, but I never tried it. So maybe if anybody's ever tried it, let me know what you think of it. It looks like it's fast acting, so I don't know how. It must be really strong if it's fast acting in an hour, because some of these systems, I mean, I took 9 buckets out of this old house. So, the other thing is you guys got to get in the practice of, and this is something that it's a pet peeve of mine, and I see it more and more, and guys, don't realize the TRX small models, the smaller step 1, the 85 to 150C, those boilers have an internal filter on the right-hand side. So when you guys and gals install the boiler, don't install it right to the right-hand side, tuck it up against the wall, leave that area open so you can get that jacket off, because there is a filter right on the right-hand side of the pump, right as you come into the pump inlet. There's a filter there. I pulled a lot of pump filters out and seen that that's been filled up. And that will affect the flow. So that's stuff that we got to look at. We're flushing these systems out. We wouldn't have every year when we pull that on a preventive maintenance, it should be clean. Because remember, we don't have any of that magnetite being pushed around that system. There's some great testers out there. I pulled this up the other day. I always say, Ted, I always say it was $21.95. Well, it's $13.29 now. It's on sale.
Well, the price has gone down.
It went down. The price went
down.
This is pretty cool because it does 3 tests. You guys get, like, you buy it and it does 3 tests. It gives you little alcohol swabs and all that, but it does total dissolved solids and it does pH. So if you guys don't want to go out and spend the big bucks, which I wouldn't, I wouldn't go out and spend the big bucks when you can have a couple of these in the back of your truck. I mean, it's really, good. I always like the test strips because then I could take a picture of it and I could reference to it for future. Test strips here, they also have test strips through Fernox. I have the kit in the middle. It's kind of getting old, so getting depleted. But that's a really nice kit, that universal kit. I like that one. I don't think they sell it anymore. From what I understand, they just went to the total test kits. I was supposed to ask Dwayne the other day, Steve, because he's the Fernox. I should ask them if they went to full test kits. But those are pretty nice too. Those kits on the left-hand side, where you guys get the pH strips, you're getting the inhibitor strips, and then you're getting total hardness, which is very important when looking at this stuff. Filtration. Yep.
Just a step back on the Fernox. If you get the commissioning kit, it comes with the light version of the test. It comes with a can of 1, a can of 3, and the commissioning kit, which tests the water and compares it to your house water to make sure that you have the right 1 pH and 2, the right amount of product in there. So that you get with the commissioning kit as part of that.
Yeah, that's what it is. The boiler commission kit. That's what they call it. Yeah, I'm gonna get my hands on one and see what they look like. But it's got does that have the inhibitor in it or not?
It's one box. It has a can of number 1 inhibitor, a can of number 3 cleaner, and the test bottles and the drippy stuff to put into it, and the tablets to do your tests with.
Okay, so that's pretty good then. That's a pretty good deal because you're getting everything. As a matter of fact, you're kind of getting more than what you get in the kit I have. You know what I mean? Because you're getting.
The reality of it is that if you buy 1 commissioning kit, that 1 test commissioning kit, that actually test vial and the chemicals will actually do about 25 tests. So you can buy
good.
1 and then 10 boilers later buy another one.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, the other thing is, guys got to think about not just on the boiler side, but we also got to treat the domestic side too. That's the other thing. So inline filters, I know Axiom filters are really nice. Atlas filters. There's different magnets out there. Caleffi makes a really nice magnet separator. Taco has a nice inline separator. The only dirt separator. The only bad thing about Y strainers is you guys got to check them a lot and then go in there and flush them out. So make precautions if you do have to flush any of your Y strainers out. Make precautions for that. Make it easier for you. So what's the magnetite do? Well, as I explained to you earlier, it kind of hardens as the magnetite sits down inside that bottom of the heat exchanger. The water moves through there as it creates flow. It hardens it because it's cooling that, and it's just cooling that sediment and causing it to get real hard like cement. And at that point, we're restricting flow in the heat exchanger, and we're also causing stress because the burner is heating up and trying to heat up that vessel. And as it's doing that, it's pulling the magnetite out of that heat exchanger and just sitting in the bottom of that heat exchanger, it will cause future problems, leaks, and will also cause lockouts too, because I'm not able to get rid of the exhaust gases from the bottom of the heat exchanger. So a lot of stuff goes on there. This is one of the oldest pictures I found in the NTI family. This is a nice leaker there. So just some examples when you guys go in, or guys or gals go in and see, this leakage, you can identify where it's coming from and how to resolve the issues. As I said before, we don't want to have this sediment going through the system. If you see on the right-hand side, that's a pump Dave, that's a pump I took a picture of in the training room there, up there in St. John. This was one of the ones that was returned to our warranty department for a warranty. And as you can see, there's a little bit of rust action going on there, a little bit magnetite. That impeller was not moving. If you look in the middle there,
that was the third pump, Jason.
the third pump, they killed the other two. Well, that's as bad as the one at Regan when I was there. That's exactly what that pump looked like. The impeller was basically just frozen in place. You couldn't even pull it up out of the cartridge, out of the housing.
It's worth pointing out that that's not a manufacturing defect.
No, it's not. Well, here's the other thing. It's got back. If you can see inside there, where it's inside the housing there, it's got past the filter. That filter is there for a reason. It's there to catch it. I pulled the filter out, it was block solid. And that's when I showed him, and he's like, wow. It's when, you can still save it at that point, but you don't want to run it too long. It's really gonna, it's common sense. Here we go. Let's just look at it like this. All right, and this is my outlook. When you go to buy a new car, all right, do you go in and buy a new car and say, listen, I want you to take all the fluids from my old car, and I want you to put them in my new car? No, you don't, because there's a reason you're replacing that car, because you want to get a newer model. You're not going to take the fluids from your old vehicle and put them in your new vehicle. Why would you do it to your boiler? Why would you just take a brand new boiler, cut the supply return out, and just slide a new one in? Why? Why would you do that? That's just defeating the whole purpose of a high efficiency system. It's not equal for equal. So it was funny, when I asked to get a water sample at this job, and I walk in and I see this. That's not a good sign. Not a good sign when you got a broom right next to the boilers that are leaking water. But guys, I got to show you, guys and gals, I got to show you this one. So I walk in, and this is a job that I was out to look at. Now we're going to play. You remember the game Find Waldo? Okay, so we're going to play this little game. Tell me what doesn't belong in this picture with a high efficiency boiler. And as we go, you'll see more of them. And if you look over top of the boiler, I'll help you out a little bit. It's called an air cushion tank. And we all know how air cushion tanks do live. They live in harmony with the air. They have no bladder. So, air will migrate to different areas depending on the life of the boiler. So let's just take a look at this nice job. So we walk in, and I know I'm already in trouble when I walk in. I see the old boilers are being used for storage and leaning up against the old tanks. So we're walking through the facility, and the facility manager says to me, myself and Eric, he says, yeah, it's kind of weird. Every couple of years, every year and a half, we go through new boilers. I'm thinking, as I'm walking through this facility, I'm thinking, I can probably see why. So we get to look at all the boilers, we open them all up, and this is what they look like. And if you guys or gals have ever seen this is excessive oxygen. And you can tell just by the way it is. But the water quality wasn't the best. There are some issues that they have there. Here's my water samples. So you can see, if you look on the left-hand side, look at my parts per million, my chlorides. I am up to about 425. Okay, that's an issue. let's look in the middle there at pH levels. If I'm looking at my pH levels are right at that 7.9, so I'm not too concerned about that. But what I was concerned about is all the expansion tanks that are installed here. So when I said I need to get a water sample, it was really funny. You can't make this stuff up. The maintenance guy says, okay, we'll get you a water sample. He literally takes the rag off the B&G 100 series circulator and water's just pouring out. I'm able to put my bucket under and fill it out of the little trough. Can't make this stuff up. It was entertaining. So I get my water sample and I still have them here. And as we're walking through this installation, I got to tell you, I counted about 9 air cushion tanks installed in this system. 9. So we all know how air cushion tanks work, where they'll live in harmony with the air. You know, those big cast iron boilers were not a problem, taking care of all that sediment in the air. It was mixed around in there. But when you put this little high efficiency boiler in there, it's, you know, cast aluminum, and you're adding makeup air, and you're always adding makeup water. It's an issue, guys. So don't just look at what's in the system, but what's being always added to the system. So if you're adding excessive water, you're adding oxygen to the system. You're going to allow for problems and issues with that boiler operation. So it's something we really need to identify. Look at this job. This is funny. This is from my boy Tyler. Now I like this picture because if you look at this picture, you can see how the magnetite in the bottom, how the heat exchanger is starting to heat up in the bottom, and the sensors overheating too because it's trying to get away. It doesn't want to be, because remember, that burner is just heating that up and it has nowhere to breathe because you have all that crap in the bottom of the heat exchanger. It's like not taking the air inlet out on a TRX. What's it going to do? It's going to hyperventilate. It can't breathe. So the system wasn't piped so bad. So you know, our internal team, management team has also got the letter that I put out. But my recommendation to them and to any contractor that runs into a situation where you're going into a large system, a large building like this with a bunch of large systems, well, number one is you should, and it's not me, but number one is the inspector should have probably said, hey, those aren't ASME certified tanks. If a state inspector's out there, he should probably say you need ASME certified tanks because it's over the allowed amount of BTUs. And number two is, if you're not sure when you guys have these systems, use a plate exchanger. It may cost some money to the system, but what would you rather do? Pipe this whole system or isolate it and then resolve the air issues in the future? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. It's an issue, and these boilers, you know, they're not easy to replace it if you have issues. So that's what I would say.
One other thought out there, Jason. I mean, in favor of the heat exchanger, not only are you potentially solving air problems, but when you look at a system like that, you see how much old iron pipe there is. I don't care how much you flush it. Eventually, they're going to clog those boilers up. There's just too much crap.
You have this.
So the heat exchanger will, you know, dramatically increase the longevity of the boiler.
And you know what, I know they're expensive depending on how big it has to be, because that would have to be, you know, it's 600,000 BTU boilers that they isolate. They can get a plate exchanger that can do 600,000 BTUs, but at the end of the day, it's kind of an insurance policy. They don't have to worry about, you know, the boiler's failing in 2 years. I mean, come on now, that's a lot of work to replace an FPG 600. It's not like
I guarantee
you have a little 85.
Be less than the boilers were.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could get like 2 plate exchangers for the price of that boiler. And I mean, I'm Dave, I'm talking big ones, you know. It's just, you know, I look at it and that's why I recommended that. You know, it's something to keep in mind to protect the boiler. And then the other thing is treatment systems. I think, you know, if you guys are really going to put contractors, if you guys and gals are really going to put your whole banging buck into it, I would get yourself, you know, if you're going to, these larger systems that are your mixing glycol, you know, look at these treatment tanks, look at these injection tanks. But if you guys really want to take the bull by the horns, I would get yourself a flush kit. Flush cart, and you know, offer this service. This is a service that it's not just normal. It's not like you go out and tone up an oil burner where you get a nozzle, pump screen, oil filter it and brush out the unit. You now have to look at the whole unit inside, what's being pushed. through that vessel. I mean, it's, it's just common knowledge that there's stuff going through the system, and it's being pushed through that little tiny boiler with those little passages. So get into practice of offering that service. I think that'd be a killer service for somebody to offer, is just go around. And I know a couple of guys that do it where they offer that. So, all right, that's
you know that almost every manufacturer has a flushing cart now.
yeah.
80 has one, Fernox
Yeah.
has one, Cliffy has one. So, and
One thing I'd point out to Jason's second to last slide there, the glycol feeders.
I
If
like
you're
those.
supplying a backflow preventer and a fill valve and all that stuff, by the time you add up the price of all that, it will
Right.
oftentimes in a residential system pay for the glycol feeder. So they're a great way to go if it's something that's available to you.
Thanks for watching the video today. If you'd like to check out more videos, see the link below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for all the future updates. And also check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.